You've probably heard people say that Hamilton's real estate market is cooling, but cooling is putting it mildly. What we're seeing right now is a market that's all over the place, very disjointed. It's a complete mess. We're seeing some serious financial pressure creep in on both sides of the deal, whether you're a buyer or a seller. In this video, I'm going to be breaking down what's happening in Hamilton's housing market, especially under the surface, not just sales volume, inventory, but also the general economic situation, and why it's worse than you may think, especially if you're a first-time home buyer. But don't worry, it's not all doom and gloom. I'll also show you how you can figure it out and how you can still come out on top. My name is Steve Lopresti. I'm a real estate agent in Hamilton, and I work with first-time buyers to help them get into the market without getting ripped off. Now, if you are a buyer right now and you're feeling stuck, you're not sure what the right decision for you is, I totally get it. There's a lot of noise out there and there's tons of conflicting advice, so it can be kind of hard to figure out exactly what it is that you should be doing and what's the right move. So that's what I'm here for. I'm here to help you figure out how to see things clearly so that you end up in the best situation possible when you buy your home. So first, let's talk about what's happening in Hamilton. One of the things we're seeing is that listings are really starting to pile up. The amount of listings that are on the market every single month is not being outpaced by the amount of homes that are being sold. So new listings are hitting the market, but the old ones are not selling off, meaning that the listings are just piling up and up and up month over month. We're seeing homes sitting on the market for 60, 90, 120 plus days, which is well outside the norm. It's usually around 30-ish days. Now, one of the biggest reasons for this is sellers are really overpriced still. They're at least $50,000 overpriced. And this is turning away a lot of buyers who feel like they can't get into this market, even though the market value for those homes is relatively decent and they could afford it. The problem is the list price is not matching up with that reality. So when you browse realtor.ca, House Sigma, or whatever, you're seeing all these listings that are priced well beyond what they should be currently priced, and it's not the price that they actually will sell for. One of the things to keep in mind is that the list price that you see is not the actual final sale price. It's more of a marketing tool. And a lot of times that number is based more on wishful thinking than it is based on market data. So if you are a buyer, you're looking out there, you're seeing a bunch of stuff that seems just slightly out of reach or really out of reach, what you want to do is don't look at what is actively on the market. Instead, look at recent homes that have sold that are similar to the ones that you're looking at that are active on the market today. That will give you a more realistic view of what homes are actually selling for at that price point. So like I said, sales volume is completely down. We only had 503 home sales in June, which is extremely low. It's one of the lowest sales numbers that we've seen in June since all the way back to 2010. So in over a decade. And if you compare that to the amount of listings we have over 1,200 listings on the market right now. So the amount of new listings is double the amount of homes that are being sold. And that number and that spread keeps going up every month. We're seeing an imbalance between the supply and the demand. There's tons of supply, not enough demand. There's too many homes, there's not enough buyers, and everyone's sitting on their hands waiting for somebody else to make the first move. Now, an interesting thing that we're starting to see is more distressed sales in the marketplace. What that is just sellers who have to sell due to financial constraints or some reason, and they're having some trouble and they have to keep lowering their price. We're seeing a lot of price cuts behind the scenes. We're seeing sellers just slowly chipping away at their price, somewhat quietly, maybe 10, 15, 20K at a time, like very small amounts, small relative. And these are signs that sellers are starting to feel the pressure of not selling for a long period of time. If you have to sell and you've been on the market for 120 days, that can start to bleed you quite a bit. There's quite a few sellers who, when the market was going crazy back during the pandemic, they bought at the peak when interest rates were low on variable rates. And then when the rates went up, they got completely destroyed. But prices went down, making it harder for them to sell. They now have to sell at a loss, but the problem is they're underwater on their mortgage. So they have to now come up with that discrepancy between what they paid for the house, what the mortgage amount they owe on it is, and what they can now sell for today. So that's why when you're looking out, you're seeing a lot of sellers who would love to sell, but they can't, or they're trying to sell, but they can't. They can't make the financials work for them. Now, another problem with Hamilton is the local economy is also under some pressure. This isn't just a housing crisis, it's a general affordability crisis. You got grocery prices piling up, insurance premiums are increasing, utility costs are rising, and wages are not keeping up with this. When you look at a market like this, it feels impossible. Like, how am I going to afford a house when I can barely afford my groceries? The average detached 3-bedroom home in Hamilton is sitting at around $800,000. And not just purchase prices, but rents are going up as well. So it's understandable if you feel stuck. You don't really know which one you're going to do. It seems like both options are kind of terrible, but I did promise solutions and I will give them to you. So the first thing that you can do is make sure that you don't follow the herd. Don't make your decisions based on what other people are doing, because a lot of times that can cause you to make the wrong decision. Whether that's with investing, one of the worst things to be doing is to be buying a stock because everybody else is talking about a stock. It's the same thing with real estate. If everybody's freaking out trying to buy something, that might be the time to pull back. If everybody else is worried about the market and thinks the market's terrible and now's a horrible time to be buying, that's probably a good time to be looking at getting into the market, right? But again, don't base it fully off of that. Remember to do your own research and to make sure that things work for your situation. Don't base your thinking based on what other people are doing, because that's not always going to end up with you in the place you want to be. People make decisions based on what works for them. It doesn't mean that their decisions are going to be the right ones for you. So the second thing that you can do is look for signs of seller distress. This is where the real opportunity is. You want to look at homes that have been sitting on the market for at least 30 days, because those are the ones who have been ground down and will be more open to negotiation. If you go for a seller who is overpriced but is just fresh on the market, they're still relatively optimistic, and the chances of them accepting your offer, even if it is based on fair market value, is still relatively low. So look for those ones that have been sitting for a while. They will be more willing to negotiate with you. You can also look for other signs like the home being vacant, which could signal the seller has already bought something else and is now carrying 2 properties at once. Little things like this will give you some extra negotiation leverage and will make sure that you don't overpay for something. Now, speaking of overpaying, the third thing you want to do is to base your offer on the recent sales that you're seeing in the marketplace. Not based on what you want, not based on what the seller want, not based on what your family thinks the home is worth, but what the recent sales are showing you that the home is actually worth, because that's the only number that matters. Just because a home is listed at $799 doesn't mean it's worth $799. Now, that can go both ways. Sometimes people list it lower and it's actually worth $850 and they're trying to price it low to get a bidding war, or it could be only worth $650 and they're trying to price it high because that's the number that they paid for the house and that's what they want to get so that they can move on to their next house. Either way, you should be pretty much ignoring the list price. You want to be looking at what homes are actually selling for that are similar to the one that you're thinking of buying. This is your best weapon for making sure that you don't overpay, and it's very important that you don't get emotional during this process either. Do your research. Make sure you understand the marketplace. Your real estate agent will help you with that. You're not going to be stuck doing all that on your own, but make sure you do your research, you understand what's going on, and then you put in an offer at that fair market value. If the seller doesn't want to accept it, that's totally fine. You can now just walk away. And one final thing is make sure that the offer that you're putting in actually makes sense for your lifestyle and for your budget. So you might be putting in an offer at the fair market value, but that still might be too much for you depending on what your budget looks like, how much money you're making, that sort of thing. So make sure that you also not only are basing your offers on actual market data, but you also understand fully the budget and the monthly breakdown of where your money is going to be going. So you have your mortgage expense, but you also have all your other costs with your home. You have your taxes, your maintenance, your insurance, your utilities. You want to make sure you understand all of that, because at the end of the day, you might buy something at a good fair market value, but if it doesn't make sense for you and you haven't built in a cash buffer, you can end up in a situation like some of these sellers where they bought too high and now they're stuck in a situation where they have to sell and they're selling at a loss. I don't want that to happen to you. So just make sure that you do your research, you know the market very well, and you know your budget so that you don't overpay for something, you don't get stuck house poor. Be patient, do your homework, avoid the hype. That's basically my tips here right now for you. If you have any questions at all, you can feel free to reach out to me. My contact info is down in the description. You can book a free call with me, ask any questions that you have, or if you just want to be walked through the process so you understand what's going on when you're thinking of buying your home. All right, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more videos like these, and I'll see you in the next one.